We are back with the second part of our program. And this part of the program, we are talking to a leadership team from Related Companies, Related Midwest. Related is one of the nation's largest privately owned real estate development firms, and it focuses on community transformation. I mean, they do large projects just as our previous guest does, large projects, mega projects, I would call them. Some of those on tap are things like on the site of what was to be the Chicago Spire on Lakeshore Drive, 400 North Lakeshore Drive, and also a transformative project in the West Loop, Lathrop Homes redevelopment. Joining me are Jeffrey Brodsky, who is the Vice Chairman of Related Companies and the Executive Vice President of Related Affordable, Yannette Garcia, who is a Senior Project Manager who led the Lathrop Homes redevelopment, and Kiera Ellis, who's their Director of Public Affairs. I welcome all three of you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Ms. Lavelle.
I'm thrilled to be able to have the opportunity to talk to you because you do big things, and the work that you do changes the landscape of the city of Chicago. The work that you do is important, and your commitment to making sure that the benefits of the work filter all the way down to the community level is an important part of that. So let me start with you, Mr. Brodsky. Talk a little bit, if you will, about your commitment and what may be even a renewed commitment to this effort after everything that we went through in 2020.
Thank you. And the commitment is, there's no question what happened in 2020 has been horrifying from so many levels, and I think will cause an acceleration on what we are proud to say we have been doing for many, many years, but we will now be doing at scale and with more intensity and with more focus. Without question, Related Midwest has been the leader in diversifying and in wealth building and in community building and in developing careers in Chicago. And effectively, Related is now taking those best practices that have been developed by Kiera and by Yannette and their teams in Chicago, and are now expanding the usefulness of those and the application of those into other cities where we are developers as well. And so the framework, which is ultimately career and wealth building, is a series of steps that I know Kiera and Yannette are looking forward to sharing in some detail, but ultimately we hope to scale beyond not only Chicago, improve and expand on in Chicago with the 78 and with other of our developments, but as important to us is how this fits into the greater diversity commitment that Related has as a national platform.
Now, I know you're a founding member of Hire 360, and that's an important element of how this gets integrated. Tell me how you're applying that through Related Midwest.
Sure. The Related Midwest folks, I think if you wouldn't mind, let the experts who are on the ground doing the hard work take a shot at the Hire 360 framework, and just know that we're trying to expand on that.
When we talk about our internal values as it relates to equity, diversity, and inclusion, and we talk about contracting, right, and hiring, there's a lot of components of that work that we do to make sure that contracts are successfully executed, not just in paper, but like out in the field, right? And the same thing with hiring. So on the contracting side, we hire minority and women-owned businesses, and we take chances with first contracts. We've awarded over 17, new contracts to subcontractors. But what I'm getting to is that the part where it takes a company from working with us to the mentorship to make sure that that company is successful, right? So when we don't have the resources internally, we then look to external resources. And one of those is Hire 360. And as a co-founder of that organization, to say, we know there are pieces along the way of a company that needs to make sure they can check the box that they know how to run contracts, know how to run accounting, know how to run marketing. Hire 360 is able to provide those services from certifications through potential loan options. And the same thing on the hiring, right? So if we want to hire from within the community, we're not looking at jobs, we're looking at careers. And so how do we maintain someone's ability to have a career in the trades if it's not through training and certifications, right? So we partner again with organizations that can be a resource to our community and to our hires. And so there's where Hire 360 comes, right? And they're able to provide those resources and that hiring so that an individual does not have a job that is for 3 to 6 to 12 months, but rather they can take that skill set, those certifications, become more competitive in the market and go on to the next job. So that's the Hire 360 overall look at saying we want to make sure that we are looking at something, the long-term contracting and hiring, as well as other things like vendor manufacturing and education, youth education as well.
Kiera, I guess I would consider you the mouthpiece in a lot of ways, in that your job is to make sure that people really understand the commitment of Related Midwest is to the community. How are you doing that?
Biggest way we do that is with our Community Inclusion Council. So this was an unprecedented organization that we brought together trade advocacy groups, the Black Contractors United, U.S. Minority Developers Council, Asian Contractors United, and we brought them all together and said, hey, we would like you to come here, advise us on our equity, diversity, and inclusion practices, and make sure we're doing it right. We wanted them to be able to evaluate what we were doing. We wanted them to be able to hold us accountable if we weren't doing something right, and to help us formulate our program. So we have that here, and it is our liaison to the community. It's a kind of open door policy about who can sit on it, and we make sure that by every project we kind of allow them to evaluate, okay, what are your goals for this, and how are you going to reach a certain amount of community hires? And that really bridges the gap between the development side and the community, because it lends us a lens of credibility, because these are organizations that these community members know, that they trust. And it also, again, gives us a level of accountability to say, did you do what you said you were going to do? So that's a key component, and we can't do anything without our Community Inclusion Council. And all of our programs are really born out of not only giving the community a seat at the table, but giving them a voice. So are we valuing the community and what they're saying? And are we giving them, the kind of opportunity to hold us accountable and make a change?
You got to open the doors. So how do you make sure that you are opening the doors to take in those professional service purveyors and create business diversity as opposed to just supplier diversity, which really speaks to me about at the supply level, at the construction level?
We consider professional services a part of the supply chain. And I think that is kind of the next level that we're, advancing to. Is I think there's we have participation goals by the city, but they're on the construction side. So now we're starting to look at our teams on professional services and say, okay, where is the diversity and how are we opening those doors for companies and holding ourselves, again, accountable? And that's a part of the CIC again. And I'll pass it off to Annette too, if you want to add anything to that.
Sure. The whole approach starts way at the front end on the deal side. And our construction team, as we're putting together budgets, we're also talking about who the architect could potentially be on these projects. And so the conversations are being had front end. So when we look at the majority of our affordable projects, are maybe I'd say around 80% of them are contracted to an MBE or a WBE. And we make sure that we are diversifying the pool of individuals that we're working with. Yes, one may be tried and true, but let's give this guy a shot. It's changing the mindset really about how we approach the professional services as well. And so we're looking at the team holistically. Now, I will say this: there are some times when an individual or a specific engineering, right, may not have, let's say elevator consultants may not have an MBE, WBE elevator consultant company, but we can make the request to say, I'd like from your team, if there's a minority or if there's a woman on the team, let them work on our job. We want them working with us on this project. And so that's where we start making change and allowing for people to get exposed to different professionals as well.
Ms. LaBelle, your point is really very, very well taken. It is a natural occurrence that the folks that you've already developed a relationship with, the quality of their work, are the first person you call, and they are historically not minority women-owned firms. That has to be broken. That is a systemic, natural condition that we have to overcome through our practice and our procedures, meaning our internal commitments. These are not generally commitments that we make to third-party organizations. This is not part of our debt or our loan programs. Those are generally focused on construction, and Yannette made that very clear, but the professional services effort has to be from the development company. It does not naturally occur. And so we are now making commitments inside of our deal letters when we are proposing investments to our C-suite. The C-suite is reviewing our commitments to diversity, including how professional services are going to be committed, and how much effort, no different than talent in your organization, what kind of effort are you going to make to look for underrepresented groups, to intentionally go and find those relationships. And in some cases, we will try to partner organizations so we get comfortable with them. In other cases, if they don't have 100% of the skills, but they have 50% of the skills, can they partner, right? So can I use a landscape architect that is, for example, a minority women-owned firm, partnering with a lead architect who might not be. So we will find ways, as Yannette mentioned, the alternative is also to get commitments from those professional service organizations, attorneys, lending counsel, bond counsel, not just associated with hard cost, to make sure that the folks that are working on our deal are learning from us. We have a little bit of arrogance in there that we think we have something to offer to their professional development, and we see this as us giving them a skill set. If you can satisfy us, and we're not easy, and we're relatively sophisticated in the way we see these deals, then they are going to be advancing their skill levels within their firm, and they're going to be advancing their relationships with people within Related. So we think that is a very powerful, at the same time that we're trying to source minority firms to actually do the work and keep track of how well we're doing that in our internal reporting.
I think that's very important. And two things that you said stick out to me. One is that your hierarchy at your company is actually measuring this, because as you may have heard me say before, I don't believe anything that's not measured is really real.
Right.
So if you don't measure it and you don't actually know what you've accomplished, I'm not sure that anything is getting accomplished. So the fact that you're taking metrics on it, I think that's critically important. Another thing you said, Yannette, you said to me that you look for a lot of those skills on the affordable projects, but I am hopeful that it is global in terms of your approach to the kind of work, because I want people of color to be engaged in work that is forward thinking and looking towards the future, because we're not trying to revive the past in any way. We're trying to prepare for a brighter future. And so giving these folks an opportunity to work on not just affordable projects, but on all types of projects is critically important.
You know, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that's where Jeff was saying that in the front end deal memo, as we're looking at projects, that's where it's all going to hit. The one message that we carry across our office right now is that when we look at a project, we're not looking at it just with budget and schedule in mind. We are also looking at with diversity and inclusion and equity in there as well. So it carries the same weight as schedule and budget. Absolutely.
That's critically important.
And I would also add that there aren't, in Chicago at least, we don't have a ton of architects who have experiences doing big high-rise buildings, right? So you mentioned the Chicago Spire site earlier. So what we've been doing now is Roosevelt Square, which is a project in kind of the near west side of Chicago. We have a minority architect working on the mid-rise, right? So we are trying to, grow them and scale them so they eventually get that experience so they can make it up to the high-rise level, because we want them on all part of our, projects, affordable, market rate, all of it.
When people think of your company, they don't necessarily think of development that is happening in the communities of color. And I think that may be wrong. That, I certainly, as I did the research for this work, didn't know that you were responsible for Lathrop homes. And that's certainly in the community. But, it is important that people understand that companies like yours are transforming communities across the face of Chicago, not just to the north or not just downtown. So what are some of the other transformative projects that you are working on in communities of color?
Yeah, so the one that most immediately comes to mind is Universal City. So that is a about 200 or 300 unit affordable property in the 7th Ward of Chicago, which is south around 95th Street and Constance. And we are doing an extensive renovation there, which is going to preserve its affordability for an additional 30 years. But we also really set some high standards for ourselves. So we told the aldermen there, and we committed to the community, we're going to do 40% minority and women-owned participation, and we're going to set a minimum of 4 community hires from the surrounding area, so that when people see development happening in their community, they know that they can have an opportunity to be a part of it. So that is one of the ones that we're really proud of. It's underway now, and we should be finishing in the next 12 to 18 months.
Kira,
So it's funny you bring that one up, Kara. I just ran the numbers, and we've already did our 4 hires, and we're at like 52% MBEWB participation on that project. So we're way above the goal. Another project, I don't know if you want to touch base on this one as well, Kara, but Roosevelt Square is one that's currently in development, and I know you know a lot of the stats on that. And I think that would be a great one to talk about.
Yes, and so that one, our actually architecture and engineering, and it's mixed income, affordable, market rate, and CHA. Our architecture and engineering on that is over 60%. So we're really proud of that one on the professional services side as well. And so we're hoping to close on that and get underway by the end of the year.
Kira, I think also that, you know, the MBE is the focus of this conversation, but community building broadly is really the goal and awareness. I think it would be helpful if you also broached the library site as an example of bringing a real community benefit into the building, literally, along with affordable housing.
Yes, and so this was a really great opportunity that we had with the CHA to do a co-located library with affordable housing on top. And so we were one of the first to do it in the city, and it is again a huge community benefit that's right downstairs in, you know, affordable housing. And so that's in the kind of near Roosevelt Square, Taylor Street community over by kind of University Village and near West Side that we are really proud of. And that one was also very successful on the participation side. So we've had a lot of success there and want to do more of, you know, community impact. So when we build something in the community, is there a community room? You know, what do they need and what services are we offering? It's not just building a building.
So what is the pipeline for businesses and workers who want to be a part of what it is that you do? How do they know? How do they get in? How do they manage to stay in?
So one of the things that we do for every single one of our projects that goes that's ready and to go out to bid is that we reach out to all the different trade organizations. A couple of things. Every subcontractor that works on our project, our team gets to meet with them. We constantly are developing relationship with different subcontractors and individuals in the community so that when the opportunity comes, we're ready, we know who's out there, and we invite them out to bid. On top of that, we then go to the different trade organizations. We give them a whole package. When the package goes out to bid, if they start responding and they need assistance during the bid process, we provide them assistance to make sure that they are being as competitive as possible in filling out all their paperwork, in submitting on time, in any way that we can help them facilitate the process of being involved in the bidding of a project. We certainly take that on ourselves.
And it's also the Community Inclusion Council, so they bring us a ton of businesses, and we also, you know, we keep an open door. So if anyone wants to be added to our bidders list, all they have to do is reach out. I shout this email all the time because I personally monitor it, but community@relatedmidwest.com. If you have a need, whether it be you want to get to know us, you want to have a meeting, just email us at community@relatedmidwest, and I personally will get back to you and see how we can work together.
Thank you so much for all of this information. And I guess I would give this last big softball question to Jeff. And the day is not going to be done for a long time for Related, but when the day is done, how do you want Related to be remembered and thought about in terms of its impact on the community?
Thank you. I don't know that that's such a softball. It's a hard process, Ms. Lavelle. We're very, very anxious to be seen as someone who's working hard to overcome systemic barriers that exist in communities like Chicago, not exclusively Chicago, but wherever we do business. There are too many systems in place that need to be broken so that people will have the opportunities that we're talking about. The efforts that my colleagues have been explaining have been over a number of years and are on the ground, boots on the ground, hand to hand, and are not easily executed at scale. We would love to be known as one of the leaders in the industry that helped these systemic barriers to be removed and to expand on the capacity of minority and women-owned businesses not to have to be so compromised in their ability to participate in the wealth building that comes from the community development we do.
If I could leave the audience with one thing, it's just that as you seek to, have opportunity with related or other development companies, I would, encourage everyone to move beyond we want jobs, we want to be included. Let us know and challenge us to develop programs to remove whatever barrier it is. If your bond is too high, ask for a program to be developed for that. If you don't have access to capital, ask for that. I think that would be the biggest way to move the needle and create actual progress is by helping developers identify ways that they could be of service to you and create programming that will remove those hurdles.
Jeff Brodsky, Yannette Garcia, and Kiara Ellis, you have ably represented related companies in Related Midwest. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and for sharing with us all of this information, critically important to what it is that you do and what we do as well. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Ms. Lavelle.
Thank you so much for having us.